Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk BD, the official podcast of the BD School, the first educational platform entirely dedicated to business development. Here we interview business development professionals working in the field every day, as well as startup founders, so they can give you all the insights, tips, and best practices to help you become a better business development professional. Let's get ready for the next episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk BD. Today we have a special guest, Summer Lowrey. Hi Summer, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Also very good, thank you. And guys, we interview Summer today. Actually, she works at a company called Big Interview. So it's funny, we're interviewing you in our big interview. And we're going to talk about her experience with business development, her career progression, doing demos, interviews. It's going to be packed with information. But without further ado, Summer, I leave you the floor. You can introduce yourself to our audience.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for having me. I am the Director of Client Relations with Big Interview. Our parent company is actually Skillful Communications. So we are an interview training firm based out of New York. And we offer one-on-one coaching with clients. We offer a tool to help hiring managers best enhance their interview skills. But our main product is Big Interview. And Big Interview, we work primarily with higher education. We're within over 600 colleges and universities. We also work at the state level as well in the US. So we work with different states with their Department of Labor. We work with nonprofit organizations, libraries, high schools, you name it. Anyone that is interested in enhancing the interview skills of job candidates, that's where you'll find us. We also have a tool called Big Interview Medical, which has a place near to my heart. We actually prepare those applying for medical residency. So as you can imagine, that interview is quite intense. You go through many years of medical school to have one opportunity to get into residency. So we also prepare those that are applying for medical residency here in the US as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Summer, for the introduction. And well, let's get started with one question that I like to ask to everyone. So that really sets the tone. And my question is, what is business development for you?
That is a great question. I know we kind of talked a little bit about it when we first chatted, but I think with business development, I mean, there's so many facets of it. And I'm really realizing that as we're fortunate enough to grow our team, that it comes in so many different variations. I mean, of course, sales, you always think sales, number one, but it's not only that. I mean, there's so much of it from a marketing standpoint, from the product that we're designing, that we're developing, every single role within the company is really there for business development, because at the end of the day, we want to grow our business. We want our business to be successful. We want everyone on the team to be successful. So I really think that business development comes in so many different facets. And it's interesting because we had, we typically in the past have hired SDRs, so sales development representatives. And recently we hired BDRs, so business development representatives. But those are kind of more focused on sales. That's their, and we kind of changed it because we wanted them to take on a little bit more responsibility of that full cycle sale and not just be limited to simply doing any sort of cold outreach. We also wanted them to be able to take on demos if needed and sort of do that full cycle sale. So we went with the business development representative, but as I'm kind of looking at it from, chatting with you and sort of exploring that role, there's also that business development from a partnership standpoint, and bringing in partnerships to the organization and really just looking at it from so many different facets in terms of what that is. But I guess to answer your question, I think it's everyone within the team is there to, do their part in developing the business and really taking us to that next level.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Summer. And yeah, and thank you also for giving us the insights into your own recruitment process, because I find it always very interesting. And I mean, just as you said, BD is quite complex, so it's multifaceted. So that's also good that you experimented with different job titles and the responsibilities for the team. And but talking about your own experience, so last time, guys, of course, as you know, before this chat, we usually get to know each other a little bit. And when talking with Summer, I actually found out that we had a lot of things in common when it comes to our career progression and how we grew in the business development world. So, Summer, could you give us a brief overview of your career so far? How did you start in business development, and what helped you grow in this career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am one of those, you hear all the time that sales folks, they get into sales even though they didn't necessarily study it in school. So my degree is actually in kinesiology. I studied that at university, and I had a emphasis in athletic training and a minor in health science. So initially I thought I was going to be out on the field, helping injured athletes, being the first on the scene. And I realized quickly that's not really my scene. I'm not an EMT type of person. It's a lot of stress, very overwhelming, and so I really kind of fell more in love with the health science and more of the preventative care and that sort of thing. So my experience after college, I was one of those students that just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and I'd been working in restaurants. So I had bartended and served all through college and even afterwards. So as time went on, I realized, okay, it's time to kind of step into the corporate world. So my first introduction really into any type of business outside of the restaurant industry was working for an organization called the Ken Blanchard Companies. And as we talked about earlier, he is the gentleman that wrote the 1 Minute Manager. So for any of you folks that are familiar with him, it was an amazing organization. I feel so fortunate to have worked there. I was their director of first impressions, AKA the receptionist, but I loved my title because it's true. You are the first person that anyone would see when they walked in the door.
It was a great title, I would say.
And I still use it to this day. We joke about it with my boss now about it's always about those first impressions. So I loved it. It was just one of those organizations that they trained you. I was actually able to take the courses that they offer. So they are a management development and leadership organization, and I was able to take the courses. So that really kind of set the foundation for me in terms of that leadership role. And although I was so young and I, of course, never led a team, I started learning the strategies early on. And from the Ken Blanchard Companies, unfortunately, there wasn't really a good fit due to the fact that I didn't really study anything. I tried to apply for different positions within the organization. It just wasn't a good fit. And so I left, and later on, a year or so later, I ended up working for and this is where it gets interesting. It was a online hybrid medical assisting college, and it was brand new. So it was a startup. But what I did was I leveraged my experience working within healthcare, sort of tied that in with sales background working in restaurants, and I got the job. And it was one of those where, looking back, I think the owner took a chance on me. He saw that I had the excitement of a young person kind of stepping into this role. He knew my passion in healthcare, and so he really kind of took a chance on me, I think. But I ended up doing pretty well there. So I kind of dove right in, and he was very intense. He had another company that he also ran, and he had very high quotas for folks. He was constantly changing things up. There was, it was always more and more and more. And it was a new concept in what it was. So, getting out there and trying to pitch it to people was always interesting. But I got to have my hands sort of in a lot of different areas. I got to work with different associations. That was when I first started getting to travel for work. And I kind of was tasked with all different types of responsibilities, such as Twitter and Facebook. And if anyone knows me, social media isn't necessarily my thing. I try to do my best on LinkedIn, but definitely not my strong point. But I learned a lot. And one of the neat things was we actually helped get international medical graduates into residency. So it kind of came full circle when I'm working at Big Interview Medical that I've actually worked now recently with clients that I worked with in the past. And there was probably about a 10-year gap. So it's really fascinating when those things happen. But from there, I then went on and worked kind of more in higher education. I worked for for-profit colleges. That's what they call them here in the US when you actually, it's different. It's more of like a technical school. And I was doing presentations at high schools, and that was a unique experience. And after that, I realized that I kind of needed to step back and do something that was more fulfilling. I had been in some, in a job that wasn't that fulfilling in terms of what we did on the day to day. And I had started volunteering for the Boys and Girls Club. And it's a nonprofit here in the US. I think they're pretty well known from what I know. And I started volunteering there and just fell in love with it. I mean, I was every day running around with kids. And I was able to kind of step into more of a senior role there as well. I was working as a program director, leading programs. And I forgot to mention at my last job, I actually got moved up pretty quickly. I was just kind of started as an admission director, ended up moving up as the assistant director of admissions and managing 3 or 4 folks. So that's kind of where I had my sort of first step into more of that managerial leadership role. And then, so then when I went to the Boys and Girls Club, I was, kind of stepped into a management position there, was moved up very quickly. And as you know, with nonprofits, unfortunately, there's not that much pay. So I was supplementing it, working at restaurants. And I just, I eventually got burnt out and was ready to kind of get back into more of that corporate, I guess you could say, world and more of the business world. So at that point, I then began working for an ed tech company, and this was another startup. And this was an interesting one because they actually had an angel investor. So that was my first time experiencing that, where there was actually someone giving us money and expecting quotas and whatnot to be, met in return. And it was a very interesting experience. There was 3 co-founders. They were all younger than I was, and they were brilliant, but they didn't necessarily know exactly how to manage and run a company. So I was able to really step in and assist from a leadership role, and I ended up managing. It started as a team of 2. We ended up growing to a team of 10. And then, as with many startups, things didn't pan out. And so they kind of did a mass layoff, and I had sort of seen the writing on the wall, as you could say, and stepped away before that happened. But it was a really amazing experience in the sense that, again, with the startup, so much going on, so much energy, so many opportunities. And then from there, I then stepped into my role here with Big Interview. And I was brought over from a colleague of mine. She had been working with them. And she just fell in love with the company and said, Summer, you have to come. It was a remote job, my first time actually working fully remote. And I was an SDR. So I was basically that person just cold calling and sending emails. And I had never done that really on a regular basis. My jobs in the past had always been a mix of those type of things, but this one was strictly that. So I was an SDR for about 3 months, and my co-founder Alex, he's incredible. He was the one doing the demos, and as you can imagine, a CEO trying to demo folks and also run a business didn't work out too well. So he had been looking for someone. He was looking for a mini me, to be honest. He really wanted a little version of himself, and I finally had to sit him down and say, "You're never going to find that. You own this company. You built this tool. This is your baby. You're never going to find someone, but let me try." And so he gave me the opportunity to step into that account executive role. And and here I am today. So that was about 6.5 years ago. So as I mentioned, I kind of moved from an SDR, then moved into the AE position. And over the years, I've been running solo. I've been managing a team. We've had different products, different projects. It's been very exciting. And I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. I mean, this company is truly so incredible, such great leadership, such great people we work with. And so here I am today. I know it's a long story.
It was a very interesting one, though, and I think it didn't pass unnoticed, at least for me, and I guess also for the people listening here, that you had pretty quick transitions, right? So pretty quick promotions, I would say. And I know that many business developers are very ambitious, and they're after promotions as well. So they also want to climb the ladder. So how did you do to do it so fast? What was your secret recipe for success?
Yeah, I think when I first started, when I first was kind of moved up into the management position at the first startup that I worked at, I think again it was the founder saw my eagerness, he saw my excitement. He knew that I had a little bit of background in it, having worked at the Ken Blanchard companies, but I think it was just my work ethic as well. I mean, I think that's something that I definitely have shown those that I've worked for is that I'm there. I'm there to grow the company. I'm there to support them. And as I did in restaurants, I always kind of said, I'm your utility player. Whatever you need from me, I'll do it. I've never been one of those people that says, okay, well, I only do demos, so I'm not going to cold call, or, I only do this and I'm not going to do that. I've never been like that. I know in order to really grow a company and to be a valued team member, you have to be able to wear multiple hats. And they always say that, especially in startups. I mean, there's just so many different things and it's growing so quickly. It's happening so fast. And that is another thing I looking back, as I mentioned with the Ken Blanchard companies, they were an established organization. They had been around for many, many years. So it was a little bit more difficult to move up in that organization as opposed to a startup where there is that energy of you work hard, you can kind of be whatever you want to be and you can take it to that next level. And I've realized that over the years that as long as you show yourself and who you are and who you can be for the company and that you're in it for the company. I think that's another thing too, is of course with sales, there's money. People want to make money, individuals want to make money. But I think when you step back and you really look at it as what can I contribute to the company that's going to grow the company, knowing that if the company grows, you're also going to grow in terms of your income. So that's kind of where I've always seen it. So I hope that answered your question in a roundabout way.
Totally. Because it actually resonates a lot with me. So I said at the beginning of the episode that we actually share a lot in common, like really from, starting working at restaurants and, waiting at tables to having management position in companies. I have had a very similar experience to yours. And I really attribute it to the same attitude, right? It was really about like just going the extra mile and just, being there and trying to do anything you can to grow the company, and this really goes a long way, right? I hope also for all of you listening, guys, just putting the extra effort does pay off. So it is more challenging, let's say, but definitely does help you. And Summer, well, we talked already about this in our private chat, but I know that you are very hands-on in your job. So obviously you're managing the team, but there is actually something that you really love doing. So I would like you to talk a little bit more about this, about you being so hands-on and talking about the part of your job you love the most.
Yes. So I will tell anyone my favorite part is the demos. I still do demos on a daily basis, whether that is for, new colleges or universities interested in a product, or if it is at the state, government level, or if it's with a medical school. I love that relationship that you can build with others. And although my whole experience within Big Interview has been virtual, so I've lived on Zoom. So it was interesting when everyone went remote during COVID, I was like, oh, I've been doing this for years now. So although all my relationships are via Zoom, there is just something so special about having that face-to-face and being able to show them a tool that I truly believe in and I truly will feel that will be such a amazing solution for them. And I think that is something that's so important, that if you truly don't believe in the product that you're selling, they're going to tell. The folks on the other end are going to realize that. And I although I've been, saying the same things over and over again for years now, that still every demo is unique. Every demo is different. Every person I speak to has their own needs. And I'm always there just to solve, but I really love the excitement that I see. And the neat part about it is, and I mentioned this earlier, is we don't do a lot of fluff. When I start a demo, typically they are someone that is going to sort of be in our ICP. I mean, not always, but on a whole, I would say these folks are buyers that are qualified. So we don't have to do a big discovery process. If they come in inbound, it's pretty much, let's schedule a demo and let me show you what you got. But I typically started off with, finding out about them and their organization and how they work with students in regards to interview prep, or if it's a government, how they're working with, those in the States, those job seekers in the States, how they're helping them prepare for interviews. So getting to understand their needs. And then I really can kind of just dive in because our tool is so user-friendly. And it's so obvious what it's doing, what it's helping, the problem that it's solving. I don't have to do the big fluff about who we are, our mission, our competitors, why we're the best. Our tool does that on its own. And that's really the neat part is, within a few minutes, people are just blown away. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so user-friendly. It's so unique in terms of all of the curriculum that it's offering and the tools that there's just so much to it that they see that right away. And that excites me because then I get excited and everyone's excited. So at the end of the day, the demo is something that I've been able to, I would say I would master, but I will tell you that I've had folks along the way in, years that I've been doing this just tell me that they've seen so many demos over the year and that, my demo by far was the best. And I'm not going to take full credit. I learned everything from my CEO. So it's not my geniusness, but I think, again, the fact that I'm able to really kind of convey to them what our tool offers to them. And it makes sense. There's not a confusion. They don't step away and think like, what did I just see? Why am I here? Who is this girl? It all makes clear sense to them. So.
Great. And I would say it's also fine to brag a little bit. Huh? It's definitely okay. You love, and I can really hear the passion as well, right? For the demo in particular. Personally, for me, it's not the best part, actually. I don't necessarily like when I used to work in SaaS companies. The demo was, to me, it sounded too much like you're showing a tool, not really exciting, I would say. But I did love the step before. So really figuring out if we were a fit. So that I love to do it, the more qualifying the leads, because it makes me feel a little bit like Sherlock Holmes, I'm just asking all these questions and they're like, let's see. And I'm like, no, that's not a good fit. But when it is, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And again, not everyone, some people, it's not their thing. And we learned that too. It's interesting. I had a colleague that I worked with and, she was an SDR right alongside of me. And we kind of asked if she wanted to move up into that more AE role and do demos. And she did it for, maybe a month or so. And she just did not like it. It just was not a good fit for her. It was very overwhelming for her, very intimidating. And it was fascinating because she was fantastic cold calling people. She had no problem doing that. But it was kind of like as soon as she got on the camera with them, things changed. And for me, it was the opposite. I kind of lit up as soon as I had the opportunity to see their face and see their excitement when I showed them the tool. And yeah, it's one of those where over the years, I have been really the only one doing demos, to be honest. We've, like I said, I kind of have many years ran solo, but even when we've had SDRs, they've always just booked demos for me. So, in essence, I've been doing demos now for, 6.5 years. And we recently brought on a couple of BDRs that are based internationally. And one of the folks, we moved them up into more of that kind of AE role where they are doing demos, but they're doing it for international universities. So that has helped me because, doing a demo is great. Doing a demo at, 5 a.m. in the morning or 10 at night, not ideal.
Not fun.
Yeah, exactly. So to be able to cater to those international folks, it's been great to have someone kind of step into that role, but it is interesting just sort of his take on the demo. And, it's just interesting. But yeah, like I said, it is one of those things that I would say, I mean, there's a lot of things I love about my role. Of course, I love being able to manage and lead a team and being there to support. But again, it really is that the ability to show our tool to those that have never seen it before, and to show how valuable it will be to their organization.
Oh, very nice. And well, you just mentioned, like, of course, the other part of the job that you like, which is managing your team, without naming names, of course. And maybe not even the person is specific, but what makes the perfect team member for you? Like, who are the people that you really love to work with when it comes to business development? Again, no naming names or people, but just characteristics, let's say.
Of course. Well, I have one in mind, but yeah, I think the folks that I love working with the most, first off, just have that kind of positive demeanor about them. They're just, kind of not necessarily saying happy all the time, but just excited, optimistic, ready to take on any challenge. I love when folks come in and they will take on any task. Many times you hire someone for a specific role, and that's all they want to do is that role. And then you're like, well, we kind of need someone to do this, or we kind of need someone to do that. Would you be interested in stepping in? And I love those folks that are like, yes, absolutely. What can I do to help? I'm here. And, I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of those folks here. And I think that's one of the things that if you ask anyone on our team, we all agree that it's the people here that we love the most. I mean, aside from, what we're offering to folks, it's really the people. And we have a lot of great folks on our team that are team players that are just willing, like I said, to take on any challenge. And I think that is something that is so important. Not only in the startup environment, but any job that you're in. I mean, like I said, even at a restaurant, I was like, if you need me to be a hostess, I'll be a hostess. I mean, if you want me to wash dishes, sure, why not? It's one of those where it doesn't matter the organization that you're in. If you are willing to help out in other departments, if you're able to take on different tasks, if you're able to kind of challenge yourself. And I do also love those that want to grow within the organization. I think that is so important. If you take a look at any sort of employer satisfaction surveys, it's actually growth that they want most as opposed to their income. So when it comes to, salary, that's great, but so many people want the opportunity to grow within their organization. And when you find people that have that willingness and have that desire to do so, it makes a world of difference in terms of how you work with them on a daily basis.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more, especially on the aspect really of taking on challenges and also prioritizing growth over money, especially at the beginning of your career. Because I had a bit of a similar experience. One of my let's say more formative experience was a startup I worked with about 9 years ago for 4 years, and also they're very similar to you. I got promoted within 5 months to a management position. It was amazing, but indeed I was really leading for the company. I really embraced the vision. I loved what we were doing. I thought we were really helping people. So it didn't matter to me that I was paid really, really very little amount, because all the skills I learned there, they're really also the skills that then enabled me to start the BD school and take it to this level. So I'm quite happy about that. So I really encourage our listeners to take example from what you just said. And I want to be also the devil's advocate. So do you have in mind also again, not naming names, but what are the things that you actually don't really like in your team members?
Yeah, I think, and this goes back to just what I've experienced in the past. One of the things when you are managing SDRs, it can become challenging because some folks really depend on you in terms of they want everything written out. They want the emails written for you, the call scripts written for you, the cadences or the sequences set up for you. And I realize those folks, there's not much determination, I guess. There's not a lot of thinking outside of the box, those kind of folks, I've realized that they just really are there just to do their job. I've noticed with those folks too, that they didn't ever try to beat quota. And I mean, for myself, looking back, just some insight, when I first started, our quotas were, as a SDR, was to book 5 demos per day or make 60 calls. So it was really whatever happened first. I mean, I was booking 8 demos per day because I was excited, because I was like, oh, I got 5 and it's noon. I still have half the day. Let's see how many more I can get. But so many other SDRs that I've worked with, in the past, it's like they met their quota and they were done. It was like, okay, that's 60 calls. I booked no demos, but I made my 60 calls, and they shut off their computer and they're done for the day. And I've noticed that over the years that those type of folks just are not what fits, especially in any kind of, startup, or really, as you mentioned, to grow the business. I mean, if you're just meeting your quota day after day and that's all that you want to do, then that's not, you can tell those people right away. And like I said, I mean, that's kind of one of those things. And, they've been great people. I've just realized that they don't have that eagerness that you kind of need, especially in any type of startup. I mean, when your whole goal is just to bring in as many demos or as many customers, you just need someone that has that drive. And with that, I also love people that are able to compose their own emails, to be creative with their call scripts, to, maybe they're going to leverage LinkedIn, or maybe they're going to leverage video emails, or, so when we hired recently, that was something that was really important to me, was bringing on folks that not only had the sales skill set, but could also be creative in their approach. And I can tell you that we've been very fortunate with the recent folks we brought on board, that they're very creative. They have been very eager and just wanting to get out there and mix things up and figure out how to get those demos booked. And so like I said, I guess I'm not happy with those that just want everything handed to them, because sometimes you don't have time. As you know, you don't have time to hand stuff to people. I mean, you have, as a manager and also doing demos and actively working with clients, I don't have that time to do everything for them. So
I can totally agree. I have really the same, I think, and this is also something recurring actually, because I interviewed a lot of, for my own customer research, but I interviewed a lot of head of sales or C-level in sales. And I think virtually all of them told me exactly the same, which is I want people that take initiative. That's really, exactly. I think, it's so dreading when you have someone that you always have to hold by their hand, and I don't know, I'd rather have someone that takes initiative and maybe, makes a mistake or two, but at least we're doing things, exactly. Than, having being a babysitter, basically. That is not fun.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the word I was looking for, initiative. But yeah. You're exactly right. And that's and you don't have the what's the word I'm looking for? The bandwidth to hand everything over to them, as you mentioned. And that is something that, and I loved your point about making mistakes. You're absolutely right. I mean, we say that all the time. It's okay if we make mistakes. It's okay if we fail, because we're going to learn from it and we're going to, redirect. And we did that recently. We started going after a market that we realized we weren't ready for. We hadn't done enough customer development to really see what their needs were and how we were going to be a solution. And so after, a few months of this, we had to kind of step back and reevaluate and say, okay, this wasn't the best, direction right now. Not to say in the future we can't, but let's reevaluate and look at what our strong suits are. And that was really kind of when we made the decision to kind of go after international universities. I was like, we have 2 amazing BDRs internationally. Let's leverage them. Let's start going after universities internationally, because we'd already worked with them and we knew that there was a need. So it was kind of one of those decisions to pivot. And like you said, it was those times where you realize that it might have been a mistake, but as I mentioned, you always learn from your mistakes and grow stronger.
All right. And Summer, to finish up our chat, of course, you work for a company called Big Interview. So I would like to take it back a little bit on the interview side. And of course, we talked a lot about career progression and so on. But what about people that are looking for jobs now? Do you have maybe one or two tips for people that are currently applying for jobs to help them win their dream jobs?
Yes, absolutely. So of course there's the plug for Big Interview, but no, I think to be honest, one of the, there's a few things that we always look for in those that we're working with is first off, research the company before you go on an interview. It's truly not that difficult. It just takes a few minutes. You would be blown away by how many times we've asked folks, what do we do? And their answers is just so bizarre. You're like, you didn't take any time to do any homework. So that's always, kind of the first red flag if they have no idea. So if you truly want a role, make sure that you research the company, find out a little bit about them. You don't need to know their whole history and, give a dissertation, but, have some information about the company and what they do. I think it's really important that when people, and I experienced this recently, if you are applying for a job and you see, for instance, a post on LinkedIn, and this happened to me recently where I had explicitly said in the job description, please email your resume and any of your, kind of sales success stories to XYZ at biginterview.com. I got probably, I don't know, over 100 applications, and only 8 of those actually emailed me. And that's the first sign. I mean, that just shows attention to detail. If you can't actually read the entire job description and follow the directions, then you're going to immediately get weeded out. So although it might be convenient to do a quick submit application via LinkedIn, that's not going to get you in the door. And again, that's sort of another thing that I've realized. I might be old school, but I love when people still send me any type of cover letter or email to explain why they're a good fit. I don't just want to see your application because I see thousands of applications. I want to know why you are the right person for this job. And real quick on a side note, I did this in the past. I had been interested in working for a company, and they were a tool that helped nonprofits, and the company was called Classy. So I actually wrote a cover letter talking about being classy, and I broke it down, and I said C is for, L is for, A is for, S, and I in each category wrote something about myself that would portray why I was the best fit. And I hit send, and I was like, I'm going to hear from them, and without fail, the next day, phone rings and there they are. So like I said, it's just going those extra steps if you really want to work for a company that that you would be a valuable asset to. So lastly, I will say on the note of interviewing, focus on behavioral interviewing. That is something that's very common. Those are your question. I'll give you an example. Tell me about a time where you had multiple projects. They were all due. They were all important. How did you prioritize and what was the result? That question is very challenging. So you need to be ready. You need to have a story. They want to know your situation, as we call it the STAR method. So the situation, what it was, what was the task, and then what was the action, and what were the results. So you need to be thoughtful in crafting these stories, because many times when you get into an interview and you've asked a question that you're not expecting, people will just ramble, and they'll ramble for 5-10 minutes. And next thing you know, they're completely off topic. And the interviewer is sitting there thinking, what just happened? So it's really important for folks to focus on behavioral questions, really study the STAR method. It'll make a world of difference. And I can tell you, we've recently been interviewing, and we had one gentleman who just blew us away. I mean, his questions were so on point, and he had done his homework, and he had studied, and he knew how to answer those questions. And he gave very concise responses, and he had examples, and it was very eye-opening and exciting to actually see what we teach folks to do. He was actually doing that. So yeah, I think those are my tips.
They are amazing, and especially the one on the behavior questions, right? Because because I'm gonna implement them also in our recruitment process. I do ask a couple of them, like specifically when I test like a little bit the ambition of the person, and more than the ambition, like I try to look for hardworking people. So I always ask like, what is one thing that they're really proud of? And usually when you ask this question, like you get a variety of answers, but the ones I like the most are the ones that tell you, I don't know, like I graduated on time. Like we have primarily junior employees, so they're fresh graduates. So they're the ones that, you know, they're really proud of their studies because they finished on time and they did everything perfectly. And maybe they even worked during the university. Those are the best because it really shows the dedication for what they're doing, given, of course, that they like what they're doing. And I completely agree with you with the applications from LinkedIn. Because every time there is a job opening for the BD school, we always have like hundreds of people applying. But indeed, the majority doesn't even look at the job description, right? And very often, like we say, well, we need people based in the Netherlands, at the very least, you know, not Rotterdam, but the Netherlands. So at least we can see each other once in a while. And then you have people from absolutely every part of the world that apply without even reading that, which it's a pity because then they're going to get rejected. There's just like no point for us to in talking to them, which is a pity because then maybe they might feel like, oh, well, another one that didn't go well, you know, while in reality is really just about reading the job descriptions and then applying for things that at least you match some requirements, not all of them, but some of them.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I know job searching is exhausting. We've all been there. But it is important if you've kind of narrowed it down to, you know, specific industry that you want to work in, specific companies, then do your homework and really read through the job description and tailor your resume. That's another key thing. We do offer that through our tool. It's called ATS Fit. So Applicant Tracking System Fit. That's another thing for folks to realize is that so many times resumes are sent and they're actually looked at by robots first. So before they actually even get into the hands of a human, they are scanned through what they call an ATS system. And if you don't have anything in your resume that's going to match up to that job description, you won't even have an opportunity to walk in that door for that interview. So it's really important to take your time when you are applying for positions, especially if it's something that you want. I mean, now if you're just out there shooting off your resume to whoever and you don't care and, you know, this is just, that's one thing. But if you actually are really interested in working for a specific company, then take the time, read the job description, tailor your resume to the needs of that job description. And like you said, Lucia, you're not going to necessarily meet every single requirement. I mean, that doesn't always happen. But if there are keywords that you can match up with, if there's anything relevant that you've done in the past that you can highlight in your resume that's going to be more applicable to the job description, then do that. Then add that to your resume and make sure that you get past that ATS so that you can actually interview and be in front of a human, whether it's via Zoom or in person. You just want to get in the door and you just want to have that interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Summer. And I can testify I did work for an ATS. So
oh, there you go. I didn't know that.
I did. It was my last company actually before starting the BD school was an ATS. So and that's very true. And like nowadays, it's like you need to get smart with these things. Otherwise, yeah, indeed, you don't even get the chance. But Summer, thank you so much. I allow myself to give this compliment. I think your name fits your personality so well because you're so joyful and enthusiastic, which I think is a perfect name. So thank you so much for bringing your enthusiasm and your joy here today. Yes, I hope to see you again soon, maybe for another chat.
Absolutely. No, this has been so fun. And thank you so much for having me. And just, you're fantastic in what you're doing and getting it out there to others. And if anyone needs anything, they can reach out to me. I'm always available, LinkedIn or email or whatever. And if you're ever interested in finding out more about any type of, interview tips, I'm more than help out that way as well. So I really appreciate, you having me on today.
Thank you so much. We will make sure to link to your LinkedIn profile as well, so people can reach out to you directly as well. Thank you so much, Summer, and thank you everyone listening today. We'll see you in the next episode very soon. For now, enjoy the rest of your days.